Hi everyone, Greg Phillips here, and I'd like to continue the presentation of some best practices when developing reports using Power BI. I ended up going a little overboard on this fourth pillar, reports and visualizations, so I split the video into two parts to reduce the session viewing time. So here we go with part one. As I mentioned in the earlier videos of this series, through my own Power BI learning over the past few years, I've consumed many online resources which have been instrumental, but I quickly became overwhelmed by content and I ended up making my own notes. I wanted to collapse those notes into easy to digest PowerPoint files, and I'd like to take this opportunity to present part one of volume 4. This presentation will be available to Enterprise DNA members in the near future, where hopefully it will be of some use to them. This is by no means an exhaustive list or even the top practices, merely some of the ones that I've incorporated into my own development. I've discussed this topic with other Power BI users to get their input, but again, these are my own takeaways. Also, the best practices will evolve over time as new and enhanced capabilities are introduced both in the Power BI application and by the Power BI community. So, as per the teachings of the Power BI community in general and the Enterprise DNA family in particular, there are 4 pillars of Power BI development: data loading and transformations, data modeling, DAX calculations, and reports and visualizations. To that, I've added a pre-pillar, if you will, for setup items that can be done before the start of your development effort. I presented the first 3 pillars in earlier videos of this series, and there are links down below in the description. And so, without any further ado, here are some selected best practices for the 4th pillar, reports and visualizations. These cover a wide range of topics and are presented in no particular order. Some tips I've incorporated into my standard Power BI development practice include make liberal use of the general section of the format pane to adjust the XY width height of all visuals. My preference is to set all values to multiples of 10, as I find it easier to align things and it really stands out when things are misaligned. You can also make small positioning adjustments using the arrow keys to move a visual by 1 pixel, and you can use shift arrow to move a visual by 10 pixels, although this seems to do it for 8 or 9 pixels for me, but I find it useful nonetheless. Let's just flip over to Power BI and have a quick look. So if I come to the total sales card here, go to the format pane, go to the general section, you can see all the values are multiples of 10. If I want to change them, I change it to whatever, multiple of 10. And then now if I select it as well, I can use the arrow keys to move it. You can see it moving, or I can use shift in the arrow keys and I can move it by a larger amount as well. Let's just get the format general up here, and we can see the numbers moving by 8 or 9. So the next thing that I do often is I use the ellipsis or the 3 dots above the top right corner or below the bottom right corner of a visual to easily select and move a visual. Most of the time the ellipsis is in the top right corner. However, when the visual is right up at the top of the canvas, the ellipsis is at the bottom right corner. You can see if I grab it and move it down, if I grab it and move it down to the bottom, you'll see the ellipsis is now at the top. If I grab it anywhere else and put it anywhere else on the page, the ellipsis is at the top. Put it at the top, the ellipsis is underneath. Next thing I do is to turn off summarization for multiple fields at once. You can switch to the model view and select the columns of interest and then select none under summarize by. So I've gone over to the model view, expanded the sales table. I'm going to control select line total order quantity, unit cost, unit price. I'm going to collapse the general section, collapse the formatting section, expand the advanced section, change the summarize by to none, and you'll see that the summation symbol has gone away from these. I make extensive use of the selection pane, and I like to keep it on screen at all times. One of the first things I do when opening a Power BI report session is to show then collapse the selection pane so that it's front and center for me all the time. I click on the word selection itself to expand and collapse the pane as necessary, instead of clicking on the X and closing the pane, then having to reopen it multiple times per session. The bookmarks pane also operates in exactly the same manner. Let's just flip over to Power BI and we'll have a look. So I come to the View menu and select Selection and Bookmarks, and then to collapse each one of them, I just click on the word. If I want to expand and collapse them again, always the word. I also avoid the use of implicit measures, dragging a column directly onto a visual, and instead I developed dedicated measures for each thing, for each field. For example, I use the total sales measure instead of the sales line total column. If the built-in data format strings don't give you the flexibility you want, you can use custom format strings to specify exactly how you'd like your data to appear in your reports. For me, I use this all the time and often specify a custom date format as DDMMMYYYY, as I find it's confusing to users about what a date value such as 04/07/2021 means. Is it April 7th or is it July the 4th? So I use DDMMMYYYY so that it's unambiguous. Another common use is to enclose negative values in brackets. This can be easily done, for example with percentages, by using a semicolon separator between the positive and negative formats and enclosing the second format string in brackets. You can even add a plus sign before the positive values if you want. There are many format strings available, and there are abundant resources available online to help you develop the format string you want. The Microsoft page link in the description below is a useful resource. Let's just flip over to Power BI and have a look. So if I go to the data view here, we can go to the dates table, and I can see the month ending column and so on is in the format here. Default, if I go DD, whoops, sorry, uppercase, it's case sensitive. There we go. And as well, if I go to the countries table and I look at the growth percentage, you can see that I use a format string here. I've typed in for a plus sign for positive values and negative values in brackets. When using a matrix, one is often presented with different column widths, and it can make the matrix look not consistent. To make a matrix have consistent column widths, a neat technique is to use a dedicated measure that uses the repeat function or REPT function to force consistency. So to set this up, let's create a new matrix and drag year and month into it. Sorry, just let me flip over here, and I'll delete the one that I have and cut it, and we'll add a new matrix, and we'll add in from the dates table, we'll add, come on, you can do it. From the dates table, we'll add in a year into the columns and quarter and month name, and into the rows we'll put channel, and we'll leave the values blank for the moment. I'm also going to come into the filter pane here, and I'm going to filter just for 2019 just to show here. Okay. Now what do I want to do? I want to come over here to the format pane, go to column headers, and come down here and make sure that auto size column width is set to on. Now I'm going to get my matrix spacer measure, which again uses the REPT, just control and mouse wheel here to make it a little larger so we can see it. So 16/8, and I'm going to bring that and put that in the value as well of the matrix. Let's just drill down, or sorry, expand down one level, two levels in hierarchy to see everything here. So now I'm going to go back to the column headers, and I'm going to turn auto size column width off. Now I'm going to go back here and remove my matrix spacer measure, and I'll add the add the measure that I'm interested in this case, total sales. Once I've added that in here, see that all the columns have the width already, and I can change the font size of those columns, and you'll see that the spacing stays the same. When it comes to the layout of visuals on a Power BI report page, one of the best things to do is to make sure you have consistent placement, size, and spacing of your visuals. Think in grids is an excellent foundation on which to build your layout. Organization of the visuals into areas, columns, or rows of related topics is primary, of course, for effective report structure. But the size and spacing of your visuals is also extremely important and is actually not that hard to enforce. If you have several card visuals on your report page, for example, you can ensure they're all the same size by starting with the smart alignment guides. Let's just flip over here and we'll take a look at those. If I grab this card here and move it up, you'll see the red alignment guides to come to make sure it's still matching the top or middle or bottom of the card. From here, and as mentioned earlier in the tips section, use the general section of the formatting pane to set the XY width height to consistent values, and I almost always use multiples of 10, as I said. Your canvas size is large, so the sizes will be close to multiples of 10 anyway, and this makes errors really stand out, so they're easily spotted and can be easily corrected. As a bonus, using multiples of 10 makes it really easy to set consistent border spacings for all your visuals. I typically use a 10 pixel spacing for regular visuals and a 20 pixel spacing for visuals with standard shadows, so you can see both the shadow and the background color. Let's just have a look. So I got the format general section open up here for this card. See all the numbers are multiples of 10. If I come to this card, they're not quite, so I'll change them. And I can tab in between fields, 125, 300, 150. There we go. Another way to align your visuals is to use the Format Align menu. This will be familiar to users of other graphical applications, for example, SQL Server Integration Services or SSIS. So here I go. I control select the two visuals I'm interested in from the Format pane under Align. I'll choose, for example, Align Left, and there you go. To make many similar visuals look alike, one good practice is to focus on a single visual to get the formatting just as you like it, and then use the Format Painter to apply the formatting to the other similar visuals on your page. Even easier, this step can be obviated by doing all your desired formatting on the first visual you add to the canvas, and then using copy and paste to create additional copies and replacing the column or measure as necessary. Another trick is to easily find format settings. You can make use of the search bar in the format pane. So let's just have a quick look here. If I go to table 1 visual, let's say I want to do something on the word wrap here. Hit the format pane, I'll just type in wrap in here, and I can see all the 3 word wrap values. I can set them easily. When it comes to selecting the colors for your report, you can generate a JSON theme file and import it to ensure consistency across your report pages and across reports in your organization. There are many tools available to help you automatically grab specific color codes from images, especially Enterprise DNA Analyst Hub Color Theme Generator, where you can use the image to colors function. But the one I'm going to discuss here is Just Color Picker, which can be used to manually grab a set of hex codes from an image. Let's just flip over to an image here. I'm going to grab Just Color Picker, and whenever you find a color that you're interested in, just hit Control X, Alt X, and it'll store the hex code for these values. Now that I've got a number of values selected, I can choose Color List, Save As, and I'll give it a name. Hex.t, oops, hex. Oh, I can't type today. Sorry, XC. Perfect. And then if I flip over to File Explorer and I look at this file, we'll see that it's just got the hex codes. From there, you can use the Power BI.tips advanced theme generator to paste the hex codes into the multiple input field. Click Add and download the theme. And then in Power BI, you can use the View Themes, browse for themes to import your custom theme. I won't demonstrate further here, as Jarrett Moore has already showcased this method a couple of times in both his YouTube video, link is down below, and in his excellent Mastering Report Development course on the Enterprise DNA member site. One other thing is if you have certain aspects of visuals where you'd like the colors to be transparent, you can just add a 00 onto the end of any hex code, so it's now actually 8 characters instead of the standard 6. I like to keep a measure in my reports called transparent color, so it's easy to grab whenever I need it. In fact, the 2 added hex codes enable a full range of transparency, and it can be used to implement partial transparency as desired. So let's just flip over to Power BI and have a quick look. If I go to the card 3 visual and so on, if I go to format and category and the title, here you can see it has a color. If I click the FX and choose a field value, and I'll go to other measures and whoops, transparent color, you can see that the category has disappeared. As well, you can set variable transparency, as I said, with the final 2 characters of the hex code and so on. You can go anywhere from 0 to 100, 0 to 50, 75 to 90 to 100, whatever, just by adding these hex codes. As Sam has noted frequently in the many resources available from Enterprise DNA, a Power BI visual is really just a table that is being rendered as a graphic. You remember that in the ellipsis menu above the top right corner of any visual, the first option is Export Data. That is if your Power BI administrator has not disabled it. Even if you select, say, a column chart, when you export the data, you see a table of values. Let's just flip over to Power BI and we'll have a look here. If I go on the TFD table, if I hover over here and click it, first option is Export Data. Let's put it to temp BP4, and we got one here. If I do it for the donut chart as well, we'll see that if I export the data from that, it's as well a CSV file. And let's just flip over to look at the file in Notepad++. So we can see both of those are actually just tables. As an aside, if you give your visuals titles before you export, then the export function will actually name the file appropriately instead of it always being called data.csv. So again, as Sam has said many times, start your visual development first with a table and ensure you have the data and calculations presented as you want. Once the table is satisfactory, you can simply click on it and then the desired visual type to quote-unquote create the desired visual. I often do a copy and paste of the table visual first and then change the paste table to be the type that I want, as I find it useful to see the original data as a table beside the new function as a verification. Let's just have a quick look here. So we'll create a table, and I'm going to drag in the warehouse code, collapse all, warehouse code and total sales. Perfect. Now that I've got that here, I'm going to copy it and paste it. Move it over here and make it a bit larger. Now I'm going to change that that pasted one to be stack bar chart. So there you go. Well, that's it for part one. Hopefully you can add some of these ideas to your Power BI toolbox and they will prove useful in the future. I'll continue the presentation of some of the best practices for the fourth pillar of Power BI development, namely reports and visualizations, in part two. Thanks for watching, and I wish everyone the best on their Power BI journey. See you in part two. Bye.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Enterprise DNA TV. If you enjoyed the content covered in this particular tutorial, please throw the video a like. It really helps us and we really appreciate it. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Enterprise DNA TV channel. We have a huge amount of content coming out all the time from myself and a range of content creators, all dedicated to improving the way that you use Power BI and the Power Platform. Lastly, check out Enterprise DNA's website. Plenty of resources and further learning that you can access very easily. All the best. Take care.